Hi everyone. Today we are going to do more work with our angle relationships unit. Again, like I said, on Friday there is a lot of vocabulary words in this unit, so we're going to spend another day just familiarizing ourselves with those vocab words. And then we're going to do a bunch of examples where we identify specific relationships. So again, our first vocabulary word were parallel lines, and we know parallel lines are lines that are in the same plane, but they do not intersect. So these lines that I highlighted in blue are examples of our parallel lines. Then we have a transversal, and a transversal is the line that intersects those two parallel lines and forms 8 angles. So here's our transversal. We often say that a pair of parallel lines are cut by a transversal. Then we had supplementary angles, and we know supplementary angles have to equal 180 degrees, and they have to be right next to each other. The hint for supplementary angles was the fact that they're always on a straight line. So we use the straight line to help identify our supplementary angles, which I have listed here for you. Okay, so let's do some more practice identifying supplementary angles when we have parallel lines cut by a transversal. So in this diagram here, angle 7 and angle 8 are supplementary angles. Angle 6 and angle 5 are supplementary angles. Angle 4 and angle 3 are supplementary angles. And angle 2 and angle 1 are also supplementary angles. So if we wanted to fill in our answers here, we have angle 8 and angle 7, angle 6 and angle 5, angle 4 and angle 3, and angle 2 and angle 1. Now, those are not all the supplementary angles in this diagram. There are definitely more. For example, 6 and 8 are supplementary angles. 7 and 5 are supplementary angles. 3 and 1 are supplementary angles, and 2 and 4 are also supplementary angles. Okay, next we have vertical angles. Remember, vertical angles are congruent angles, which means they are equal to each other, formed by the intersection of two lines. So in this diagram, we have 4 vertical angles that are listed out for you. We have angle 1 and angle 4, angle 2 and angle 3, angle 5 and angle 8, and angle 6 and angle 7. The important piece of information here that we must remember is that vertical angles are congruent, which means they are equal to each other. Okay, so we're going to do some practice identifying our vertical angles. So if I just look at that first parallel line here, my first set of vertical angles is going to be angle 8 and angle 5. Then we have angle 7 and angle 6. So if I wanted to write that in here, angle 8 and angle 5, angle 6 and angle 7. Okay, now I'm going to look at my second parallel line. Angle 4 and angle 1 are vertical, and angle 3 and angle 2 are vertical. Now again, the important thing we need to remember is all these pairs of angles are equal to each other. So angle 8 is equal to angle 5. Angle 6 is equal to angle 7. Angle 4 is equal to angle 1, and angle 2 is equal to angle 3. That piece of information is going to help us in a little bit. Okay, then we have alternate interior angles. Remember, alternate interior angles are non-adjacent interior angles found on opposite sides of the transversal. So remember, when you hear the word interior, think inside. It's inside those parallel lines. It's inside that region that I shaded in yellow. So angle 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all interior angles. But for alternate interior angles, you want to look on opposite sides of the transversal. So angle 3 and angle 6 are alternate interior angles. What we need to memorize is the fact that alternate interior angles are also equal, or they are congruent. So that means angle 3 is equal to angle 6. Okay, we have one more pair of alternate interior angles, and that is, angle 4 and angle 5. Angle 4 and angle 5 are alternate interior angles, which means that they are equal, or they are congruent. So angle 4 is equal to angle 5. Okay, that's also going to help us in a little bit. Okay, you're going to do some practice identifying alternate interior angles. Again, to locate alternate interior angles, we are looking inside or in between those two parallel lines and looking on opposite sides of the transversal. So angle 6 and angle 3 are alternate interior angles, and angle 5 and angle 4 are alternate interior angles. The important piece of information here and why that's so helpful is the fact that angle 6 is equal to angle 3 and angle 5 is equal to angle 4. Okay. Next is alternate exterior angles. Alternate exterior angles are on the exterior or the outside of those parallel lines, and they're still on opposite sides of the transversal. So angle 1 and angle 8 are alternate exterior angles, which means angle 1 is also equal to angle 8. Okay, then we have angle 2 and angle 7. Angle 2 and angle 7 are alternate exterior angles, which means angle 2 is equal to angle 7. Okay, we'll do some more practice identifying. Our first set of alternate exterior angles, again, I labeled where our exterior region of this diagram is. So angle 8 and angle 1 are alternate exteriors, which means angle 8 is equal to angle 1. And angle 7 and angle 2 are alternate exterior angles, which means angle 7 is going to be equal to angle 2. Okay. And last vocabulary word is corresponding angles. So corresponding angles has to deal with the position where the angles are on these parallel lines. So corresponding angles have the same position on two different parallel lines that are cut by a transversal. What we need to know, very important, is that corresponding angles are also congruent or equal to each other. Okay, so we want to look at the first parallel line and identify our corresponding angles. So if we look at angle 1, this is on the top left. So then you're going to go to the second parallel line and locate what angle is also on the top left, which is angle 1 and angle 5. So angle 1 and angle 5 are corresponding angles, which mean angle 1 is equal to angle 5. Okay, then we'll go, I'm going to use a different color. Then we're going to go to the top right and the top right on the second line, which means angle 2 and angle 6 are corresponding angles, which means angle 2 is equal to angle 6. Okay, now we're going to look at the bottom. On the bottom left, on the first line, we have angle 3, and on the bottom left of the second line, we have angle 7, which means angle 3 is going to be equal to angle 7. Okay, and last but not least, we have the bottom right. The bottom right on the first line is angle 4, and the bottom right on the second line is angle 8, which means angle 4 and angle 8 are corresponding angles, which means that they are equal to each other. So the measure of angle 4 is going to be equal to the measure of angle 8. Okay, do some practice now identifying more corresponding angles. So angle 8 and angle 4 are both on the top left, which means angle 4 and angle 8 are corresponding angles, which also means they are equal to each other. Angle 7 and angle 3 are both on the top right, which means they are corresponding angles and equal to each other. Angle 6 and angle 2 are on the bottom left, which means they are corresponding angles and equal to each other. And last but not least, angle 5 and angle 1 are corresponding angles, which means they are also equal to each other. Okay, guys, now we're going to use some of those facts about alternate exterior, alternate interior, and corresponding angles to help us find the measure of all of these measures in this diagram. Okay, and this is the new thing for today, for today's lesson. So in order to figure out all these angle measures, you need to be given at least one angle measure, which I gave for you. It says, if the measure of angle A is 130 degrees, then find the following angles. Okay, so you can't do anything without at least one angle. So I know angle A is equal to 130 degrees. Now, there are a bunch of different ways you guys can find the measure of angle B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. Okay, I'm going to probably go the easiest route, but if you want to go a different route, when you guys do these practice problems, by all means, go for it. Okay, so I know angle A is 130 degrees. Well, I also know angle A and angle D are vertical angles. So that means angle A and angle D are equal to each other since they're vertical. So I know angle D also has to equal 130 degrees. I start with those vertical angles because that's the simplest. I don't have to do any math there because they're equal to each other. So I'm going to fill in my chart. Oops. I'm going to fill in my chart where it says angle D, and I'm going to write 130 degrees. Okay. You could keep going with this 130 degrees if you would like, or you can find a different measure. I'm going to stick with the 130 for now. I know angle A and angle E are corresponding angles because angle A and angle E are both on the top left position. Since they're corresponding angles, they're also equal to each other. So I know angle E also has to be equal to 130 degrees. Okay, because corresponding angles are equal. So I'm going to fill in E to be 130 degrees as well. Well, if E is equal to 130 degrees, H is its corresponding angle. H is its vertical angle, which means they also have to be equal to each other. So angle H also has to equal 130 degrees because vertical angles are equal to each other. Okay, so I'm going to fill in my chart here. Angle H is also 130 degrees. Okay, so that's all of the angles that are going to be equal to 130. Now we got to do some math to figure out the remaining angles, which is B, C, F, and G. I'm going to look at the first parallel line here. I'm going to take the fact that angle B and D are supplementary. They're on a straight line, so they're supplementary and they're right next to each other. Since they're supplementary, the sum of their angles has to be 180 degrees. So if I know angle D is already equal to 130, I can find out the measure of angle B by doing 180 minus 130, which gives us 50. So I know that angle B has to be equal to 50 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to fill in angle B equal to 50 degrees. Well, if I'm staying on that first line, angle C is a vertical angle to angle B. So that means angle C, that means angle C also has to be equal to 50 degrees because vertical angles are congruent or equal. All right, so I'm done now with all the angles on the first line. There are 4 angles. I now know the measure of all of them. So we're done. Now let's look at our second line. I could do the same thing that I did up top. I know H and F are supplementary. So I could do 180 again minus 30 to get 50, which is angle F, or use your corresponding angle theory. Angle B and angle F are corresponding angles because they're in the same position. They're both on the top right. So they're equal to each other. So angle F is also equal to 50 degrees. Okay. Now, angle F and angle G are vertical angles. Vertical angles are equal to each other. So that means angle G also has to equal 50 degrees. Okay? And we just solved the measures of all of those angles just by using those new vocab word facts. Corresponding angles are equal, vertical angles are equal, and supplementary angles are equal to 180. So those are the 3 facts we use. We didn't even have to do anything about alternate interiors, but look, they are equal. Angle C and angle F are alternate interiors, so we know they have to be equal. Well, C equals 50, F equals 50. Those are equal, so we know we did that right. D and E are alternate interior angles. They have to be equal. D equals 130, and E equals 130. So again, we know we're right. All right, guys, so we're just taking these new vocabulary words definitions and applying them to angle relationships and solving for missing angles. It's kind of like a puzzle. All right, let's look at one more. Okay, so again, when I give you this diagram, I need to give you at least one measure of an angle in order for you to solve for the rest. So I wrote, if the measure of angle B is 60 degrees, then find the following angles. Okay, so I told you angle B is equal to 60 degrees. Perfect. I like to start with the easiest angle relationship, something that's going to be also equal to 60 degrees. Well, I know angle B and angle C are vertical. That means they must be equal. So I know angle C also has to be equal to 60 degrees. Okay, you don't have to start with that. You can start with by solving for angle D by doing the supplementary angle fact. That's fine. Okay, guys, does not matter which route you go through or go down to answer these angle measures. Okay, as long as we get the right answers, I don't care which approach you take. All right, I'm going to stick with that 60. All right, I know angle B and angle F are corresponding angles because they're both on the top right, which means angle F also has to equal 60 degrees. Okay, I'm going to stay on that second parallel line. I also know angle F and angle G are vertical angles, and vertical angles are equal, so angle G also has to equal 60 degrees. Okay, now I'm done with my 60-degree angles. Now you can find the measures of any other angles you would like at this point. I'm going to start with angle A. Last time we started with, which one was it? D. You could do that. Does not matter. But I know that angle A and B are supplementary angles, which means together they have to equal 180. Well, I know angle B already equals 60, so I can find the measurement of angle A simply by subtracting 180 minus 60, which equals 120. So I know angle A has to be equal to 120 degrees. Okay, well, angle A and angle D are vertical angles, which means that they are equal to each other. So angle D also has to be equal to 120 degrees. So I'm going to fill in my chart here. Okay, now I really don't have to do any more math. I can use my angle relationships to help me figure out the rest. We can continue with corresponding angles, or you can look right here. Angle D and angle E are alternate interior angles, which means they're equal to each other. So I know angle E also has to equal 120 degrees. And then since angle E and angle H are vertical angles, they are also equal to each other, which means angle H also has to be equal to 120 degrees. Okay? So again, we just used our definitions and our facts about angle relationships to solve for the measures of these missing angles. As you guys can see, you can use any angle relationship that you want, of course, as long as you're using them correctly. All right, you're now going to complete the day 2 assignment on Google Classroom. It's going to look almost identical like this, so be sure to fill in all the text boxes and all these charts and diagrams and show all your work. All right, guys, if you have any questions, please ask me.